Everything you know about Native American civilizations might be wrong. They weren't just surviving, they were inventing, building, and creating ideas way ahead of their time. But somehow, history books left out a lot of their brilliance. Get ready to learn the amazing things they did that no one told you about. First up, their writings. When most people think about Native American history, they imagine stories being told around a fire, elders passing down legends through spoken word alone. But that idea leaves out an incredible fact. Many Native groups had advanced writing systems long before Europeans arrived. Native American writing was as diverse as their cultures. Some tribes used pictographs, symbols that stood for ideas rather than specific words. Others created full writing systems to record their languages. These range from petroglyphs, or carvings on stone, to detailed beadwork on wampum belts, which told stories and recorded agreements. One of the most amazing examples was the Cherokee syllabary. This writing system had 86 characters, each representing a syllable in the Cherokee language. And unlike most writing systems that took centuries to develop, this one spread incredibly fast. The literacy rate went from 0 to 60 faster than a sports car with a tax break. Within just a few years, thousands of Cherokee people were reading and writing in their own language, publishing newspapers, religious texts, and legal documents. Other tribes recorded history using winter counts, calendar-like drawings on animal hides that marked big events each year. The Lakota, Dakota, and Nakota people kept these visual records, with each picture representing a key moment. One symbol might mean the winter when stars fell, or a meteor shower, and the year the buffalo didn't come, or a bad hunting season. Imagine tracking your life this way. The year my Wi-Fi betrayed me would definitely make the list. In the Southwest, ancient Puebloan cultures had their own symbolic writing systems. Their rock carvings and pottery designs weren't just for decoration. They recorded important information about the stars, migration, and spiritual beliefs. These weren't just random doodles. They were sophisticated ways to store knowledge. Then there was the Maya, whose civilization stretched into what's now the southern U.S. They had one of the most advanced writing systems in the ancient world. Their hieroglyphs recorded historical events, astronomical data, and religious beliefs with incredible precision. Their calendar was so accurate, it makes your smartphone reminders look like wild guesses. What makes all these writing systems even more impressive is that they developed independently from those in Europe and Asia. Each was a unique way of solving the universal human need to record and share information. These weren't primitive attempts at writing. They were fully developed systems, perfectly suited to the cultures that created them. But writing was just one area where native ingenuity shined. While some tribes recorded their histories through symbols and characters, others were busy engineering remarkable structures. Native Americans take things even deeper, literally. Forget simple teepees or log cabins. Some built entire cities underground. The ancestral Puebloans, who lived in what's now the American Southwest, created some of the most impressive underground structures in North America. Their kivas, sunken ceremonial rooms, were used for religious gatherings and political meetings. But these weren't just dirt pits. They had benches, central fire pits, and even ventilation systems to control smoke. They had better air circulation than some modern office buildings, where cracking a window requires government approval. In the Mesa Verde region, some kivas were massive, over 60 feet across. The Great Kiva at Chetro Kettle in Chaco Canyon had carefully designed floor vaults, huge support beams, and acoustics so good that a whisper on one side could be heard clearly on the other. Meanwhile, today's open office layouts make sure you can hear every single chewing sound from 3 desks away. The level of engineering behind these spaces, built without modern tools, is mind-blowing. But it wasn't just ceremonial spaces. Native Americans also built entire communities that blended into the landscape. The cliff dwellings at Mesa Verde housed hundreds of people in multi-story stone buildings tucked into natural rock formations. Underground storage rooms kept food fresh through brutal winters and protected precious seeds for future planting. Then there's Cahokia, a massive pre-Columbian city near present-day St. Louis. At its peak, it had up to 20,000 people, bigger than most European cities at the time. While not underground, its enormous earthen mounds reshape the landscape on an almost unimaginable scale. The largest Monk's Mound stands 100 feet tall and contains over 22 million cubic feet of earth. That's more dirt moving than your neighbor's weekend landscaping project, except Cahokia didn't have a rented bulldozer and a midlife crisis driving it. Beyond ceremonies and cities, underground and semi-underground homes were also practical. On the harsh Great Plains, earth lodges were built partially into the ground, with timber and sod covering the top. These homes naturally stayed warm in winter and cool in summer. No heaters, no air conditioners, just smart design. What makes all of this even more impressive is how well these structures worked with nature. These weren't just buildings. They were carefully planned solutions that took advantage of natural forces instead of fighting against them. Modern architects take notes because some of us are still living in apartments where the heat works only when it feels like it. But architectural innovation wasn't the only area where Native Americans displayed remarkable ingenuity. Building impressive structures was just one way Native Americans showed their genius. Their political systems were just as remarkable and far more influential than most history books admit. Long before the U.S., when the Constitution was written, the Haudenosaunee, also known as the Iroquois Confederacy, had a sophisticated democratic system called the Great Law of Peace. This alliance united 5 nations: the Mohawk, Oneida, Onondaga, Cayuga, and Seneca, with the Tuscarora joining in the early 1700s. It wasn't just a simple chain of command, it was a carefully balanced system designed to stop any one group from taking too much control. The Confederacy ran through a Grand Council, where representatives from each nation met to discuss issues affecting the whole alliance. Women held major political power. They chose the male representatives and could remove leaders who weren't doing their job. Imagine if today's politicians had to worry about getting fired by their moms. Decisions weren't made by simple majority vote, but through consensus. This meant everyone had to agree before a decision was final, ensuring no group got ignored. The Grand Council's debates could last for days or even weeks, with leaders going back to their communities for input before making choices. Basically, it was the original version of this meeting could have been an email. What makes this system even more impressive? It helped shape American democracy. The Founding Fathers studied the Iroquois Confederacy while designing the U.S. Constitution. The idea of federalism, balancing power between a central government and individual states, comes straight from the Haudenosaunee model. They also had checks and balances, separation of powers, and impeachment rules centuries before these became the backbone of American government. In 1988, the U.S. Congress officially recognized the contribution of the Iroquois Confederacy of Nations to the development of the United States Constitution. But despite this, most history books still barely mention it. Apparently, some footnotes are harder to write than others, and the Haudenosaunee weren't the only ones with advanced governments. The Creek Confederacy in the southeast had a dual leadership system, with white leaders for peacetime and red leaders for war. This ensured no single person had absolute control. These weren't just early attempts at democracy, they were fully developed political systems built for the needs of their people. While they were running functioning democracies, Europeans were still arguing over whether kings ruled by divine right. Yet governance was just one arena where native cultures developed practices that would leave lasting legacies. Their creativity extended into realms that might surprise those familiar only with standard history books. Among their most fascinating innovations were organized sports that served purposes far deeper than mere entertainment. The most famous of these is lacrosse, a game that originated centuries before Europeans arrived on the continent. Originally called stickball, or the little brother of war by various tribes, this wasn't just a casual weekend activity. For many native communities, especially those in the eastern woodlands and Great Lakes regions, lacrosse was deeply woven into their spiritual and diplomatic practices. The Haudenosaunee, or Iroquois, called it tewarathon, meaning they bump hips, while the Onondaga referred to it as dihunchigwaz, translating to they hit a rounded object. The scale of traditional lacrosse games would make modern sports organizers faint. Matches could involve hundreds, sometimes thousands of players from different villages or tribes. Playing fields weren't neatly marked rectangular spaces, but stretched across vast territories, sometimes spanning several miles. The NFL thinks its field is big, but traditional lacrosse players would need GPS just to find their teammates. These epic contests could last for days, with players demonstrating incredible endurance and skill. Equipment was handcrafted, wooden sticks carefully carved and strung with deer sinew, and balls made from wood, deerskin, or even stone. Rules varied widely between tribes, but most versions involved scoring by hitting a target or carrying the ball across a designated line. Beyond recreation, lacrosse served crucial social functions. Tribes used these games to resolve disputes without bloodshed, making it a diplomatic tool that prevented warfare. Before a major conflict, opposing groups might agree to settle their differences through a lacrosse match instead of battle, saving countless lives in the process. The spiritual dimension of lacrosse was equally significant. Many tribes viewed the game as a gift from the Creator, playing to please spiritual beings or as part of important ceremonies. Games were often preceded by elaborate rituals, including prayer, fasting, and special dances. For tribes like the Cherokee, lacrosse represented a balance between warfare and peace. Games helped young men develop skills useful in both hunting and combat while providing a controlled outlet for aggression. Today, lacrosse remains deeply connected to Native American heritage. The Iroquois nationals team competes internationally under their own flag, preserving the spiritual and cultural traditions of the game's originators. Native innovation extended far beyond games and governance into another critical area of human knowledge, one that would eventually save countless lives worldwide. Native American knowledge continues to influence modern life in ways few recognize. Long before pharmaceutical labs and prescription pads, Native healers developed a sophisticated understanding of medicinal plants and treatments that would eventually revolutionize healthcare worldwide. Willow bark stands as perhaps the most famous example. Tribes across North America used this natural remedy to reduce fever and relieve pain. The bark contains salicin, the same compound that forms the basis of aspirin. When European settlers observed native healers using willow for pain relief, they took this knowledge back to Europe, where it eventually led to the development of one of the world's most common medications. Next time you reach for aspirin, thank a native herbalist, though they managed without those childproof caps that defeat most adults. Native American medicine wasn't limited to pain relief. The foxglove plant, used by several tribes to treat heart problems, contains digitalis, still used in modern heart medications. Purple coneflower, better known today as echinacea, was widely used as an immune booster and wound treatment. Their medicine cabinet was basically the entire forest, no midnight pharmacy runs needed. What made native medicine particularly remarkable was its holistic approach. Rather than treating isolated symptoms, healers addressed physical, mental, and spiritual aspects of illness. Many tribes use sweat lodges, similar to modern saunas, to purify the body and mind. These ceremonies combined intense heat with spiritual rituals, creating therapeutic experiences that addressed both physiological and psychological needs. Their surgical techniques also displayed surprising sophistication. Archaeological evidence shows that some tribes successfully performed trepanation, drilling holes in the skull to relieve pressure, with survival rates that rivaled those of 19th century European hospitals. They used obsidian blades sharper than modern surgical steel and plant-based anesthetics to manage pain during procedures. Midwifery and women's healthcare were especially advanced. Native midwives developed techniques for easing childbirth and managing complications that were safer than European practices of the same period. Their prenatal care didn't include ultrasounds, but it did include a lot fewer leeches than European medicine of the time. Modern researchers continue to study Native American medical practices, with pharmaceutical companies investigating traditional remedies for new drug development. Approximately 25% of prescription drugs contain compounds originally discovered through native knowledge. While healing bodies with plant medicine, Native Americans were equally innovative in another crucial area of human survival. Native Americans' agricultural innovations rank among humanity's most significant achievements, transforming not just North America, but eventually the entire world's food supply. At the center of Native American agriculture stands the remarkable Three Sisters planting method. This ingenious system combines corn, beans, and squash in a single growing space. Each plant plays a specific role. Corn provides a natural trellis for beans to climb, beans fix nitrogen in the soil to fertilize the corn, and squash spreads along the ground, creating living mulch that retains moisture and suppresses weeds. It's like the original plant buddy system. No friendship bracelets needed, just mutual survival benefits. This companion planting method yields approximately 20% more food than growing the same crops separately. Additionally, these foods complement each other nutritionally. Corn provides carbohydrates, beans supply protein, and squash delivers essential vitamins and minerals. Together, they form a nearly complete diet that sustained civilizations for thousands of years. The variety of crops domesticated by Native Americans staggers the imagination. Beyond the Three Sisters, they cultivated sunflowers, tobacco, pecans, blueberries, cranberries, potatoes, tomatoes, chili peppers, chocolate, vanilla, pineapples, and avocados. Approximately 60% of the foods now grown worldwide were originally domesticated by native people of the Americas. Their farming practices also included advanced seed selection. By carefully choosing which plants produced seeds for the next season, native farmers essentially practiced genetic modification the slow way. They transformed a wild grass called teosinte into modern corn, arguably one of the most dramatic examples of human-guided plant evolution. They managed to create corn without a single laboratory coat or clipboard, just generations of careful observation. Crop rotation and following fields to restore soil fertility were common practices among agricultural tribes. The Iroquois routinely moved their fields to allow soil recovery, developing a sustainable system that maintained productivity for centuries. Perhaps most impressively, Native Americans achieved these agricultural feats without metal tools, draft animals, or wheels. Using simple wooden and stone implements, they built farming systems so effective that European colonists frequently relied on native knowledge to survive in the unfamiliar environment. While feeding their communities through innovative agriculture, Native Americans simultaneously managed their environment at a landscape scale through another surprising technique. Don't play with fire might be good advice for children, but Native Americans turned controlled burning into an art form that shaped entire landscapes. Far from the stereotype of passive dwellers in a pristine wilderness, Native people actively managed their environments through sophisticated fire techniques long before European arrival. How extensive was this practice? Historical records suggest that almost every ecosystem in North America was regularly burned by Native Americans. From the vast grasslands of the Great Plains to the forests of the Northeast, from the chaparral of California to the pine savannas of the Southeast, deliberate fire transformed the continent. These weren't accidental campfires gone wrong, unlike that time your uncle tried to grill in the wind and singed off his eyebrows. Why burn the land on purpose? The reasons were as diverse as the environments themselves. In forest ecosystems, regular low-intensity fires cleared undergrowth, preventing the dangerous buildup of fuels that lead to catastrophic wildfires. This created open park-like forests where visibility extended for hundreds of yards, perfect for hunting and safer travel. For prairie-dwelling tribes, fire stimulated new growth of nutritious grasses, attracting bison and other game animals. The Blackfeet and other plains tribes used strategic burning to guide bison movements, essentially creating a form of wildlife management that increased hunting success. They basically invented the original drive-through restaurant. Just bring the food to where you're already waiting. Many tribes used fire to enhance the production of edible plants, berries, and nuts. Oak savannas maintained by regular burning produced up to 5 times more acorns than dense forests. Fire also stimulated growth of plants used for basketry materials, medicine, and food gathering. The ecological benefits extended far beyond human needs. Many plant species actually evolved to depend on regular fire, with seeds that only germinate after exposure to heat or smoke. Wildlife habitat diversity increased through the mosaic of burned and unburned patches across the landscape. When European colonizers arrived, they often described America as a wilderness, not recognizing they were looking at carefully managed landscapes shaped by thousands of years of native burning practices. Modern land managers have begun to recognize the wisdom in these ancient practices, increasingly incorporating prescribed burns based on Native American techniques into contemporary management plans. Native Americans displayed impressive mastery of their environments, but their innovations didn't stop at the water's edge. While popular culture often depicts Native people as exclusively landbound, many tribes developed sophisticated maritime cultures that rivaled those of any seafaring nation in the world. Take the Chumash people of California's southern coast. They built remarkable watercraft called tommels, plank canoes held together with natural tar and plant fibers. These vessels weren't crude rafts, but precisely engineered boats capable of crossing the dangerous Santa Barbara Channel to reach the Channel Islands, more than 20 miles offshore. Historical records show the Chumash regularly navigated these waters for trade and fishing expeditions, even during challenging weather conditions. Their GPS system, stars, wind patterns, and ocean currents, slightly less convenient than your phone, but never needed charging. On the opposite coast, the Calusa of Florida constructed large offshore fishing platforms and dugout canoes capable of carrying up to 30 people. Archaeological evidence indicates they ventured miles into the Gulf of Mexico for deep water fishing, returning with catches that supported large, complex societies. Their main village sites contained specialized fishing gear, including nets weighted with shell sinkers, indicating a maritime culture finely tuned to their aquatic environment. Perhaps most impressive were the Makah and other tribes of the Pacific Northwest, who hunted whales in open ocean waters. Using cedar canoes typically measuring 35 feet long, they pursued gray whales weighing up to 35 tons. This wasn't just brave. It required extraordinary seafaring skills, intimate knowledge of whale behavior, and remarkable coordination among crews. Successful whale hunts provided enough meat and oil to feed entire villages for months. The trade networks established through these maritime skills extended far beyond local waters. The Haida of the Pacific Northwest traveled hundreds of miles along the coast, establishing trading relationships that connected diverse cultures. Their distinctive carved canoes, some large enough to carry 60 people and tons of cargo, were masterpieces of naval engineering. Evidence suggests some Native American seafarers may have traveled even farther. Sweet potatoes, native to South America, somehow reached Polynesia centuries before European contact. Some researchers believe this indicates contact between South American native people and Polynesians, requiring extraordinary oceanic voyages that predated Columbus by hundreds of years. These maritime achievements took generations to perfect. Boat-building techniques were carefully guarded knowledge passed down through specialized guilds of craftspeople. Young sailors trained for years before participating in major expeditions, learning navigation, weather prediction, and emergency management skills. The maritime knowledge of these cultures wasn't just practical, it influenced their spiritual lives, art, and social structures. Many coastal tribes developed elaborate ceremonies connected to the sea, recognizing both its bounty and dangers. While mastering the waters around them, Native Americans also maintained deep connections to another living thing. Horses actually originated in North America about 55 million years ago before spreading to other continents. Then, in a strange turn of events, they went extinct in their homeland around 10,000 years ago, only to be reintroduced by Europeans in the 1500s. In other words, horses weren't new to America. They were returning after a very, very long vacation. This homecoming reunion revolutionized life for many tribes. The impact was so profound that it's hard to overstate. Within just 1 or 2 generations after horses returned to the continent, certain Native American groups transformed their entire way of life. The Comanche, once a small, fairly unremarkable tribe, became known as Lords of the Plains through their exceptional horsemanship. They developed riding techniques so advanced that Spanish observers claimed Comanche riders could shoot arrows accurately while hanging from the side of a galloping horse, using the animal's body as a shield. The Blackfeet, Lakota, Crow, and other Plains tribes invented new hunting methods using horses, allowing them to harvest significantly more bison with less risk. Some groups developed specialized breeding programs, creating horses particularly suited to hunting, warfare, or long-distance travel. The Nez Perce became famous for their selective breeding program that produced the Appaloosa, a distinctive spotted horse prized for its intelligence, endurance, and strength. Horse acquisition became central to many tribal economies. Successful raids to capture horses from rival groups or Spanish settlements became a path to wealth and status. A skilled warrior might accumulate hundreds of horses during his lifetime, creating a form of wealth that could be gifted, traded, or used as bride price. New cultural practices emerged around these animals. Horse medicine societies formed to safeguard specialized knowledge about caring for them. Special ceremonies honored exceptional horses, and elaborate horse regalia developed as expressions of artistic and spiritual connection to these vital animals. These 9 aspects of Native American achievement barely scratch the surface of their contributions to human knowledge and ingenuity.